So you decided to ETS. Good for you. You're getting out of the military. You're preparing for civilian life. You just spent 6 hours or 3 days, depending on the unit, turning in your uniforms and your gear and being told you can't because Lord knows it's supposed to be clean after 3 years in the desert. And you finally get out and you return home to your wife, your dog, your husband, your significant other, and you've really only got a handful of things on your mind. You're looking for probably some good food, some work, a whole lot of leisure time, and a bunch of plowing. Oh, and then maybe working in your garden too. um, yeah. So for the therapists out there, ETS is the military term used to describe your end of service. You're no longer in the military. You're getting out. You've got your DD-214, which is your document showing your military service, and you're done. You're out. You're good to go. And they do some stuff at the end of the service. They give you some various briefs on how to find a job, what to prepare yourself for civilian life. And they pat you on the butt, say attaboy, and send you merrily on your way. And then there's everything they don't tell you about. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. What happens after you ETS? So guys, I'm going to use a hypothetical on this one. Say you've been serving in the military for at least 10 years. Now, active duty, yeah, 10 years active duty. Some contracts are 6, some contracts are 2, some contracts are 4. Well, let's say you re-enlisted a few times. That's about 10 years. You spent 10 years in the military and you're getting out. You've had multiple combat deployments. You've been to multiple places in the world. You even had some non-combat deployments. You're just deployed to like Germany or Poland or Korea. And here you are, you're done, and you're out. And from what I've seen in a typical bell curve or a standard deviation, standard deviation, is that there are some, and so what I'm talking about for those who are not veterans in the research fields, you have your standard distribution. A standard deviation is one distribution or one mean jump from the center of the direct medium or the mean and mode. Again, things that you veterans probably don't understand, which is fine. On the extreme positive end, all the way over here, usually on the far, if you're looking at it, it's on the far right, are considered those individuals who are so exceptional that they have no issues. And then on the far left are those individuals who just literally fall apart at the smallest breeze. However, everyone in the middle is the people I'm talking about, because these are the ones I've encountered the most. So usually by the time you get out of the military and you've ETS and you're home and you're enjoying your civilian life, and maybe you've got a job lined up, maybe you don't, maybe you're going to go back to college, usually by the end of week 3, you are having a profound sense of your loss of identity. Understand, you know who you are, you know who your wife or your significant other is, you know who your kids are, you know who your family is, you know who your battle buddies are, but your identity as a human being blew away like the wind the moment you walked off post. What do I mean by this? Well, in the military, your identity can literally be defined by your rank, time and service, your deployments, the units you've served with, your PT score, and any officer or NCO reviews that you've gone through, if you are an officer and NCO. Just so you understand, none of that matters to the civilian world. None of it. Absolutely zero. In fact, the most you'll get out of the civilian world is, how many people did you kill? Really weird question. Don't really care for it, but I've gotten that, and I worked on helicopters. The second thing that'll happen is a loss of purpose. Now, in the military, just so you understand, everything is very routine, very regulated. You're getting up at 0 dark sleepy. You know you're going to PT, then you're going to go get chow, then you're going to report to your duty station, then you're going to get lunch, then you're going to go back to your duty station, then you're going to go to retreat or dismissal, and if you're lucky, you'll get out on time to go home to your wife or your family or your video game system or your inflatable donkey. We'll get to the story later. And then of course if you've got CQ or Firewatch, you get put on that. But you know when everything's happening. You know everything that's happening. And you've spent the last 8 to 10 years being told, whether it's from the DOD, the Pentagon, the generals, the post commander, brigade commander, your sergeants, your first sergeants, your command sergeant majors, you've been told every day what to do and what's expected of you every single day for the last 10 years. And now you're out. And the only person that has any expectation of you, if you're single, is you. If you're married, is your wife and family, or your wife, husband, family, whatever, and your kids. And you're having to make all the decisions. You're having to decide what to do, and you've just spent the last 8 to 10 years being conditioned for someone else to tell you what to do in a very regimented way. Now, like I said, on that standard deviation, on that bell curve, there are those who get out and they go trucking. They had a plan from when they were in. They go trucking. They're good to go. But for those that are just your average soldier, or again, I was in the Army, so everybody's a soldier, except for the Marines. We love the Marines. But yeah, we go trucking through, and bam, we get out and we're lost. And it just blows our minds, because we're like, okay, I have had somebody else at the helm of my ship that is my life. I use this, that was helming the ship of my life, and they're gone, and now I get to make a decision. And in front of me, 360 degrees in a circle around me, and 360 degrees in a circle, a full sphere, I can choose any direction to go, and it's overwhelming. We don't know we don't know which direction to go. In fact, I have several veterans I've worked with that I got that just came, that were out, that were like a month after getting out, and this was their number one problem: a gross loss of identity and a gross loss of purpose. They couldn't figure out what to do with themselves, and we worked with them on it to help them establish how to function on their own. Because they joined when they were 18, they got out when they were 28. The military had literally spoon-fed them and baby-fed them their top, so they had never learned how to truly be self-sufficient, because someone else was always telling them what they couldn't do and how to do it. So you got that going on. The third thing that happens, and this is where a lot of veterans start running, this is where the mental health part really spikes. Those first two things are mental health issues. They can cause a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of turmoil, because you're trying to figure things out and everything's a little confusing. And that can last for months. That can last for years. I've worked with several veterans who I caught 10 years after they ETS'd, who were still struggling with figuring out who the heck they were and what they were supposed to do. But the third thing is the most critical event that occurs after you ETS. And that is all of your past traumas that you experienced in the military, whether it was actually dealing in a combat situation, loss of life, dealing with just the stress and burnout that comes with being in the military, any kind of sexual trauma, any kind of loss of freedom, or anything that could be considered a trauma, and there's a lot that can be considered as trauma, is going to come back all at once. Now understand, you're like, well, why didn't it happen to me while I was in the service? All right, environmental psychology. You were in there. You were in the military. In the military, you have the mission first directive. Mission first. And so veterans who were, infantry, they're kicking indoors, shooting bad guys, watching the battle buddy get blown up, do not have time in that moment to process what's going on. So they tell themselves in the moment, I will process this later. Later never comes. Later never comes while they're in the service, while it's on their mind. Later comes usually 1 to 3 months after they get out, after they have left the military environment. Now, a buffering thing is if they join a government contracting company or the post office or any of those things, it can buffer this and make it to where it doesn't happen immediately, but it is still an issue. It will, as soon as you get out of the environment that's insulating it, it's going to hit you like a tsunami, period. And it's not going to be, 1 or 2 little traumas pop up. It's all of them at once bum rushing you. Straight up. And you can't run away from them because they're in you. And and this can be a very emotionally confusing time, because you'll have anger, you'll have sorrow, you'll have grief, you'll have, trauma, anxiety, fear reactions, panic attacks out of the clear frickin' blue. And it'll confuse you greatly. And I'll give you a great example. one of my colleagues, had somebody they're working with, veteran, who one day there was a dead squirrel in their yard, and they picked it up and they were going to throw it out, and they had this total mental, they started just crying and grieving and pouring their eyes out. Like, this is a squirrel. What the hell? And then when they started working with them, they found out, oh yeah, over in Afghanistan when you were on guard duty, when you guys got ambushed, there was that Afghani national that ran their wounded child up to you, and you tried to get this child who was wounded and bleeding out in your arms to the medic who was less than 100 yards away. And when you get to the medic, they died in your arms. You didn't have time to process it. You had time to get back and try to protect your men and get done. And it got suppressed, pushed down, repressed, never dealt with it. And then this little innocuous thing of taking this dead squirrel triggered all of the past grief and loss of human life all at once and confused the piss out of them. Thankfully, they were already working with a counselor at the time, and they were able to work through it. But if not, it can be horribly confusing. And that's why we're here. That's why I do what I do. That's why other veterans and other therapists do what they do. Those are the top 3 things that you're going to be dealing with when you ETS. Now, as a caveat, understand this for therapists, that's what the active duty people are going to be dealing with. If they're National Guard or reserves, not so much, because they already have their civilian life, they're living it, they're doing their stuff. Even if they come back from deployment, it's an easier transition because they already have their civilian identity and their military identity. And at the end of the day, they can hang their military identity up in the closet. Active duty can't do that. Now, as a caveat, and I'll just put this out to any veterans that are watching this, I have a question for you. When did you realize you didn't take off the uniform? Because whether you like it or not, no matter how long ago you retired, got out, ETS'd, whatever, at some point you realized you're still wearing that uniform. Doesn't matter if you burned the thing. It is forged into you like a blacksmith, like Damascus steel with a blacksmith. So, hopefully, I've helped you out here with understanding ETSing, understanding the stuff as a veteran you're going to be dealing with, and therapists understanding what a veteran's going to deal with when they ETS. I mean, if you found this informative, if you found this educational, if you found this fun to listen to, awesome. Hit that like and subscribe, And if not, hey, that's on you. But other than that, I am government property, and I will catch you next time.